I I scripted intensely for a month about making $10,000 after like my highest month ever was like 3,000 or something like that. And the next month, opportunities came to me and I made $10,000 that month. And just like all of these insane synchronicities started to happen. And I was like, there is something to this. And I've kept up with it. And life's just magical right now, honestly. Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm really excited to have you on and have you share your truly transformational journey as a person on the podcast and how your YouTube channel has really contributed to that. So, why don't we get started with sharing with our viewers and listeners what inspired you to get onto YouTube and when specifically that was?
Yeah, that was actually over 10 years ago. And it was before YouTube was what it is now. Like, you didn't make money on YouTube back then. I remember seeing someone who had like 5,000 subscribers, and I was like, what? This is mind blowing. And then one time I saw a girl who had 40,000, and I was like, there are 40,000 people on the internet at this point? What? Like, it was just wild. So I started back before it was the career making machine that it is today. But it was actually somewhat of a tragedy in my life that led me to start my YouTube channel. When I was 18, I was dating someone and he passed away. And
Oh,
that was
wow.
just a very life altering experience. For one, loss in general, but for two, especially back then, death was my biggest fear. And losing someone that I like really cared about and loved on top of him being young and that being my biggest fear, that was just really shocking to me. And I felt really lost for a little while. But at one point, I just was like, I can't sit here and sulk forever. He lived such an inspiring life. I want to use my life to honor him and make the most of my life because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So I was like, what have I always wanted to do? And back then it was like, I want to get into acting and singing and stuff like that. So I searched online how to get into acting, how to get into singing. And that led me to YouTube videos on the subject. And then I noticed like, wait, people are making their own videos. Like they're kind of like acting and singing and taking it into their own hands. And I'm like, that seems fun. And so I decided to start a channel back then with my friend. And the whole purpose of me starting, and this was before it was what it is today, but I was like, I want to live my life to the fullest, gain an audience or attention in some way in order to inspire people with my experience and really just spread the message of our life isn't guaranteed, so why not make the most of it and go after what we want? And it wasn't until almost 10 years later, 8 years later, that I finally shared the story of his passing and how it affected my life. And that video now has over 2 million views. And I'm so happy about that because so many people who've watched it have experienced similar losses, and I get messages all the time on like how they don't feel alone and they see how I'm doing in life and it gives them hope. So that was really
Hmm.
my purpose in starting my channel, and I was able to make that video and connect with those people. So yeah.
Wow. Wow. What a story. And so you got onto YouTube and to just kind of share a message and almost like, hey, we've only got one life to live and we got to make the most of it. So then what were you posting on your YouTube channel?
It's funny. My channel has shifted and changed. And back in the day, I started making lip sync music videos back when I was 18 years old
Wow.
on a separate channel than the one that I have now. But I started with lip sync videos, and then I got into just like random whatever videos. Like, what do people want to see? What's trending right now? I don't even know. It was just like the most random videos. If you go back even a few years ago and beyond, um, they're just so random, like testing weird products. I had no idea what I was doing as we mentioned before we hopped on this call, I was basically throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what worked. And yeah, so it was all over the place in the beginning. It was not consistent. It wasn't like a specific niche or niche, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's definitely evolved into something that I'm proud of now.
Yeah. So then at what point, I mean, you uploaded your first video, what sounded like 10 plus years ago, about, maybe possibly growing an audience, getting some exposure. But at what point did you actually see it as your career?
So that was actually only a handful of years ago. I was babysitting for $10 an hour, super broke, like in a really toxic place in my life. And I was babysitting for this family, and I watched this little girl from 2 months old to 2.5 years old. And I was so attached to her. She was like my little safe space in LA. And one day her family was like, hey, we're actually moving. And I was like, no, like, this is my security blanket. Yeah. Like, I love you guys. But because they moved, I was like, I don't want to babysit another kid. Like, I don't want to get attached. What am I doing here? Why am I wasting my time? Because that was the purpose of starting the channel. Yeah. And I decided, well, since they're leaving, I'm just going to put my energy into actually being consistent with videos. Because although I've had a channel for over 10 years, it wasn't until a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, that I started getting consistent with it. And that's when, like, it was like the month that I decided I'm going to get consistent with it. That's when my AdSense money, my Google check, was enough to pay my rent. And I was like, there's something here. And it really inspired me to keep going. And yeah.
And that was after 8 years of being on the platform.
Yes, 7, 6, somewhere between 6 and 8. My timeline is just all over the place because so much has changed and transformed in my life. I can't even keep track anymore.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So a few years back, like, so, 6 years into your channel, 6 to 7 years into your channel, you said, you know what, I'm going to go. Was it more like I'm going to go all in, or is it more like, I'm going to take this a little bit more seriously. I'm going to be consistent. Which one was those?
Yeah. Yeah, more so I'm just going to take this more seriously. I'm going to actually post every week. And I didn't have a set schedule, but my goal was just like, I'm going to post every week. And it started paying off. So yeah. And I'm not saying to anyone who is new to YouTube or wanting to start a channel, I'm not saying it will take you 6, 7, 8 years. I'm saying it took me that long because I was not consistent and I was all over the place and I wasn't taking it seriously. But it was when I started getting in the mode that it grew to what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, so much of YouTube success, a lot of it has to do with not just being consistent, but having a mindset shift to making it a priority and actually taking it seriously.
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. And so for you, you started taking it seriously. Was it then at that moment your only source of income at the time?
No, I mean, at that moment, it was paying my rent. And then I was finding odd jobs here and there. I was, I had a small period of time where I was driving for Postmates, like Postmate delivery and just anything that I could find. But I didn't have to do that stuff for very long because also on top of that, I was able to have sponsorships. And when those came in, that was always a big help.
Do you remember how many subscribers you had in that moment when you said, I'm going to actually, at least upload once a week?
I think at that point I did have about 100,000, but those came from those random videos that went viral. And then I would get a lot of subscribers from random viral videos. But then because I didn't have a specific genre or niche, like they would come for one type of video and then I wouldn't make many of those videos. So they weren't like consistently watching, so I had a large subscriber number, but they weren't dedicated at that point.
Yeah. Let's talk about that almost that transformation of your channel itself, because when I look at your channel and I look at some of your highest viewed videos, I mean your highest viewed video was the crazy foot peel mask, and then you have like period life hacks, home mole removal, your smile transformation, detox foot pads, Kylie Jenner lips. So you have all these microblading. So all these videos have millions of views to them, but it's really not the topic that you're actually focusing on and building your audience around.
A lot of those videos make me cringe, actually. Like, I'm like, don't watch those at this point.
Why?
But, huh? What was that?
Why?
Just because making them, I didn't have any heart behind them. It was just like, I think this is something that people want to watch. Like, maybe this will help me pay my rent. It wasn't like a passion project or
Mm.
video. And I'm just really very into just being authentic. And I think that's what works out. And it's not that I wasn't authentic in those videos. It just, they're not ones that I'm necessarily proud of and like loving. Like, I don't send people to watch them.
Yeah, yeah. And so, when did that transition happen between kind of like you said, almost like uploading virally video? You're like, okay, this will pay the rent, this will do well, people are going to watch it, to really almost having a mission behind your channel and the content you have today, which is manifesting and helping people, go through that whole process of, living their dream life.
Mhm.
When did that shift happen for you?
Yeah, so that happened a few years back. It was around the time that the little girl that I used to babysit moved. Yeah, because just several years ago, like I said, I was broke. I was making $10 an hour babysitting. I was in a very toxic, long relationship with an alcoholic, and no
Mm,
one knew on my channel. Like, I was
mm,
going through that for years, and it was like life sucking. And I just hit like a really low rock bottom where I was in bed for like 2 weeks, just binge watching Netflix, drinking wine, just so miserable. And I
mm.
got to this point where I'm like, I'm tired of myself. This is not how my life is supposed to go. Like, my childhood self would look at this and be like, what happened? That's not how it was supposed to unfold. So I just got really tired of myself. And um, an acquaintance of mine was like, hey, I have a few personal developments I want to recommend if you're open to reading them because they might help. And I was like, I hate reading, but I'm willing to try anything to not feel this miserable. And so he went on Amazon and had them delivered to my house, and I started reading them. And one of them is called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and then The Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be by Jack Canfield.
Mm-hmm.
And those both kind of started introducing me more so to the law of attraction and manifestation, changing your mindset, scripting, using visualizations. And even though my life was really low, and some people, when you're in a really low place, you're like just hopeless and you're like, that's not going to work. That's BS. That doesn't work for people. I was like, no, I'm going to take this to heart and actually practice these things that these books are teaching me. Like, a lot of people read books, but they don't actually integrate into
Implement
their
it.
lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I started having a morning routine and meditating and scripting and using visualizations. And I got really clear on monitoring my thoughts because, our brains are on autopilot often, and they're just like going all over the place. And sometimes if you take a step back and stop and really notice what you're saying to yourself, I did that. And I was like, I'm saying the most horrible things to myself all the time. I remember, I remember as far as like the physical aspect of myself goes, looking at all of me and thinking to myself, I think I'm disgusting. The only thing I like about me is my hands. They're small and dainty. Everything else, like, I just don't like that about myself. And I would just play out scenarios in my mind and tell myself, like, you're so embarrassing. Nobody likes you. Like, oh, like, why did you do that? Like, that was on
Mm.
repeat in my head all the time. And
That's so
I started
damaging.
getting those thoughts. And when those thoughts would come, I would stop them and correct them to the truth. And the truth is, like, I'm a good person. I'm loved. I'm loving, and just redirecting to the truth. So yeah,
Wow.
it was like this slow process, day by day, of doing a little more inner work. And it wasn't like my life changed in a day, but it took a few months. Things started to shift, even less than a few months, and then more things started to shift. Manifestations started to happen. Um, I I scripted intensely for a month about making $10,000 after, like, my highest month ever was like 3,000 or something like that. And the next month, opportunities came to me and I made $10,000 that month. And just like all of these insane synchronicities started to happen. And I was like, there is something to this. And I've kept up with it. And I life's just magical right now, honestly.
That's
Even with
amazing.
everything going on in the world, I still
Yeah.
believe life is magical.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what a shift. I mean, even just a simple, and it's so funny how something so simple, like a friend recommending a couple books to you, some people be like, okay, thanks. And then maybe they get the book, never read it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they don't even get it. Maybe, whatever. And then they move on and whatever. But it is very interesting how sometimes someone comes into your life and they say something or they do something and it will change the trajectory of your life forever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it sounded like that's what happened to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's also because I was to the point where I was fed up with myself. Like when you're to the point where you're fed up with yourself and you're like,
You can't stand
I
yourself.
have
Yeah.
no other option than
Yeah.
to do something different because my life is going to be miserable if I keep playing out these patterns.
So how did you then at that point start approaching your channel differently? I'm assuming that had an effect on the way you approached your channel.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, it's scary sharing new things and being vulnerable because I had not been vulnerable. I actually had, if you're into chakras, a very closed throat chakra. Like it was really hard for me to express myself. So I just started sharing bit by bit, a little here and there. I got really into my physical health because during my depression I gained 30 pounds very quickly, and like that's shocking when you have a small frame and then all of a sudden it's like, where did this all come from? Like, I'm falling apart. So I just started taking my physical health really seriously, and that was an easy thing to start sharing because it wasn't super deep and vulnerable, but it was still like motivation change, and people started seeing me transform physically through that. And then when I started feeling more confident, I started sharing little more pieces of vulnerability, and I just kept getting really good feedback, and people wanted to know more and know how I did it and what I was doing, and people were suggesting like you should get into life coaching. Side note, if we didn't say this yet, guys, I am a certified life coach now on top of all of that.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, as I was slowly sharing my journey, I was getting encouragement, and that made me feel safe to continue to share more and more and more. And now I'm pretty much an open book for the most part. There are a lot of weird things about me that I'm still like, oh, I'm trying to open up about this, but we're getting there.
Yeah. So you would say that basically it translates to your channel by being more open and authentic as to who you really are.
Yeah. Speaking from the heart, not filtering myself so much because I'd filtered myself my entire life. Fear of judgment, fear of my parents looking at me a certain way, all of that. Yeah. But I'm to the point where I know that the person judging me, it's not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of where they're at. So yeah, that's a big thing.
And then how then did you see that translate into the growth, or, how did that translate into your channel itself? You like finally making that shift.
Yeah. I mean, now almost, I want to say all of my content is based off of personal development, manifestation, law of attraction. I don't do random videos. Like some people will be like, test another weird product or do a foot peel mask. I'm like, I know that I could make money off of that, but I don't want to do that. So I'm sticking to what my heart wants to share. And people respond really well. Like I'm right now at the end of a free 28-day manifestation challenge that I decided to put on, and the response and the people in there, they are my people. Like I have a Facebook group for it and everything, and they're just so uplifting and just feeding off of each other's energy and cheering each other on. And I'm like, that's what matters. I don't care about the views. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about positively influencing other people's lives. And so that is what my channel is all about now. And I don't take down those old videos because I want people to go back and be like, whoa, she was a completely different person back then.
I like that you don't, because I know there's a lot of people that do. Like they have a complete transformation with their channel. It's a totally different niche. And then when I'm, prepping for the interview, or if it's somebody that's, enrolled in my, one of my YouTube programs or something, I'm like, where is it? Because I want to see the progression. And I think it's a really inspiring thing for people to see how you have progressed from one thing to, and you actually can do that on YouTube. Like it's a possibility to reinvent yourself on YouTube, and have a totally different platform.
Absolutely. And people don't care about this polished, shiny, finished product. They want to see a real human. They want to see their growth and their transformation. They want to know that they can do it too. Because so many people want to just step out and be perfect. Perfect isn't real. People don't relate to perfect. Like, be you, and it always pays off. Always. Authenticity always will win.
100%. And you've experienced that yourself, because would you say that prior to this whole kind of revelation that you've had, were you authentically you?
Prior to this, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think I was even authentically me when I was by myself, because I was so wrapped up in the struggle and the stories that my mind created and the conditioning. Like, I feel like I, in the last few years, just reached this place where I'm like, I've freed myself from the cage that my mind created for me. So yeah, I was not authentically showing up
Yeah.
before this chapter.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what would you tell, being somebody that you're a life coach and you are very knowledgeable and have experienced it yourself, manifesting, scripting, and you are a successful YouTuber? Because I personally, and I work with a lot of YouTube creators, a lot of new YouTube creators, and one of the things that I see as hindering their success is it's really a mindset thing. So, what are some, I don't say strategies or even actions that people can take that maybe are they want to be successful on YouTube, but they're struggling with that, a lot of that negative self-talk, those things that exactly that you're talking about. What can they do to almost get to the place where you're at right now?
Yeah, I would say start with your own personal work and your own personal healing. I really am strongly into meditation, because that helps train you to kind of clear your mind, because almost all of our problems are fake, because they're just simply thoughts in our head. We're thinking, this person is going to judge us, I'm going to be rejected, people are going to think I'm stupid, and it's literally just thoughts in our head. So work on practicing to clear your mind, move your body, go out in nature, anything to, as we say in manifestation world, raise your vibration, which just means raise your emotional state. If you feel good, you're going to feel motivated, you're going to have energy, you're going to show up more confidently. So what do you enjoy doing? Play more. Like, the more fun you can have, the more you're going to be inspired and have and able to take inspired action. So yeah, I always like to direct people back to the inner work, because everyone wants to like force and hustle and make this work, but they're burning themselves out and they're like driving themselves crazy. And if you're doing that, take a step back, focus on your energetics, take care of yourself first, get yourself back to a neutral place in your emotions, and then move on with that and try to enjoy life. Honestly, the more you're enjoying life, the easier it becomes to open up and share. And yeah, on top of that, when you do that, especially with my message of being authentic and authenticity winning, if you're having a YouTube channel, you're going to feel a little bit more brave every day to express yourself a little more, and just take it in small little baby steps and increments. And also be grateful for where you're at, and know that things are always going to change and transform and improve. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's my answer.
Yeah, so it's really a matter of basically working on yourself and in kind of implementing it through, like you said, little baby steps of sharing more of yourself with every single video. So how would you say somebody, you said, the personal work, your meditation, are there, say, like maybe 3 specific things that somebody could do who maybe really needs to do that personal work?
Yeah. If you're super new and have never done the inner work, personal development, pick up a personal development book. Again, I love the Success Principles. I mentioned that one. I actually have a video on the top personal development books that I've read that have changed my life. I just think it's so such a big step to take in that information and slowly start to implement those things in your life and try things. And if you're like, this doesn't feel good for me, or I'm not into it, you don't have to do those specific things, but find things that you do enjoy. I already mentioned meditation. Other than meditation, scripting. I talk about this on my channel a lot, or just journaling in general, like getting your thoughts out on paper so you can kind of process what you're going through. But scripting is a journaling process where you're journaling as if you're your future self in present tense. So like if I want to journal as myself in a year, I'm writing what that life looks like at that time. So for me, when I was like, I don't know what I want my life to look like, I started journaling how I wanted to show up. Like, how does a more brave version of me show up, and what does my life look like? That back then looked like someone who expressed love and had amazing friendships, and just the emotions that I felt before I had clarity on what I wanted my life to look like. Another thing is, I know this might sound weird if you've never done this, but feel your emotions. Like, let yourself feel sad if you're feeling sad, because we'll feel a certain way and we'll label it as something bad, and then we shame it and we're like, why am I feeling like this? Like, I feel horrible. Like, let me work and do and do and do so I can feel better. But really, in order to feel better, you need to be a better feeler, meaning you have to be okay to feel what you're feeling and remind yourself that's so normal. And in those moments, be gentle with yourself and ask yourself, like, whatever's coming up, is this true? It's probably actually not true. And like, if it's not true, is it mine? Like, did I learn this from someone? Did someone tell me that I wasn't enough? Or did something happen that made me think like I couldn't be loved or do the things that I wanted in life? And just really connect with yourself. And again, have compassion when you're feeling those things, because that's the best way through it, to actually fully embrace it and love yourself.
Yeah, I love that. That's all such good advice for people that are wanting to grow on YouTube. And I think, the scripting, the idea of scripting and, writing out, what you want, what you want things to look like, or if you don't know
Yeah.
what you want to look like how you want to show up to your YouTube channel, to your YouTube audience. I think that's really powerful advice.
Yeah, definitely. Do scripting on how you want your channel to be. Like, what do your subscribers, like, how do they react to your videos? What are the comments you get? Like, you can do so many things with that and get really excited about that future vision.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so now we're nearing to the end of the interview, where I do the hot seat round, where I ask the same questions to everyone that's come on the show. And so the first question is, what is your highest viewed video, and how much did you make from that video?
My highest viewed video was one from back in the day before I found my purpose, and it was testing a crazy foot peel mask. And it has like 12 million views, maybe more, I don't even know at this point. And it made more than $17,000, somewhere around 17,700 from that video alone.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. And it's just so funny, though. It's like when you have a video like that that's not in your niche, it's like you're getting all these new people onto your channel.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, this channel isn't about, self-care anymore. And so what do you do? What do you do with that? I guess it's part of your history, I guess.
I guess so. I just let it be. And I feel like if people do subscribe, actually, I've had people on my newer content say like, I subscribed from that foot peel mask video, but then I came here and I see what you're doing and I love it. So that's good. But then, yeah, I do have a lot of, I'm sure, random people who aren't into the content I'm currently creating, and I guess I just have to let it be what it is. Maybe even suggest. I'm all for suggesting to people. Feel free to subscribe if what I'm making now isn't what you like. It's okay.
Yeah, I love that. What is the number one struggle that you have with your YouTube channel?
Number one struggle. Editing. Does that count?
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah, it does.
It takes so much of my time, and it drives me crazy sometimes, because I'll sit there, because I do all my editing, and I have this struggle right now where I don't want to hand over my footage because I just don't trust someone to make the video how I want it made, just because when I film, I don't script things out. I just sit, I have a topic and I like let it flow. Sometimes I'll be filming for an hour long and then I have to cut that hour down into like 15, 20 minutes. And I just don't trust another person to know what I want to keep in and what I want out. So editing for sure is very time consuming for me.
How long does it take you to edit a video?
Usually often anywhere from like 5 to 8 hours.
Yeah, you're doing how many videos a week?
Just one right now. I was doing 2 previously though.
Yeah. Why did you scale down to 1?
Because I started my life coaching, so I have a bunch of client calls and things like that that are, take up a lot of my time.
That's awesome. So is your client coach, is your life coaching, I'm assuming the people that sign up for that, they're directly from your YouTube channel?
Every single person that I am working with and have worked with, they've all come from my YouTube channel. One of my clients, she is amazing. She watched one of my videos and applied to my one-to-one coaching, and she's been working with me for several months, and she's doing amazing. I was like, you watched one of my videos and you're like, I'm gonna go for it. So that was cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. That's what having a YouTube channel is all about. Like, I mean, I think you said it at the beginning. I thought it was really good. Would you say it was a career building machine, YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It is.
You can do anything. You can have any passion and make that into a YouTube channel. It's so cool.
I know, it is. If you were to start over with your YouTube channel right now, what would you do differently?
I would start out authentically. I would take it a little more seriously and create consistently, but I would also allow myself to not be perfect in doing that and just show up more.
Yeah, I love that. What is a favorite video you've done that you've uploaded onto your channel?
Oh gosh, let me think. There are several. A lot of my most recent ones in the last several years, like I said, I shared my video on my boyfriend who passed away when I was 18. That was a big one for me to share because that was one of my really first videos where I was being very, very, very authentic. Also, I have a video that I love. It's how I manifested my dream apartment. I share all of the tips and tools in the process. It's like a really cool story because, yeah, you'll just have to go watch it because that's a whole long story in itself. And then I also have a video on how I overcame depression and turned my life around. That's another one that I was back when I was starting to be really authentic and openly share about my life and things that were going on. And I feel like that has had a big impact on people as well. And most of my videos on manifestation and scripting and all of that, I just love making those.
Yeah, that's awesome. Next question is, any particular video that you were really excited about, but that just didn't do well on your channel?
Ooh, I'm sure. Ooh, almost everything, because I used to do covers, like music covers, and I would make videos. I created this really cool mashup to 2 Selena Gomez songs, and I had my friend who's a videographer film it, and like I did the music, I created the mashup, I put so much effort into it, and it just didn't get a lot of attention. But it was so good.
When did you upload that one?
Several years ago, I feel like.
So was that like after was that while you were doing the focusing on the manifestation stuff, and then you decided, well, I'm just going to upload this video just to see how it goes?
I think that was before I got serious into the manifestation content. Oh yeah, it was 2 years ago, probably almost 3 years ago, and it has 7,000 views right now. So that was probably right when I started sharing things, and I was still kind of mixing up my content.
Yeah. What is the biggest opportunity you got as a result of your YouTube channel?
Biggest opportunity that I've got. That's so interesting. I mean, what pops into my mind right now is, well, this actually, here we go. So I'm an affiliate for a CBD brand, and they noticed that I was just sharing because I liked their brand, and they're like, hey, can we, do you want to be an actual affiliate, because we see you're sharing about our product, because I just really loved it, because that really helped with my anxiety in the beginning. And so I became an affiliate, and then I turned into one of their top affiliates and made a good chunk of money each month just from people who bought the CBD through my code. And again, it went so well because I just authentically shared about something that was really working for me. But because of that, they invited me, and well, rewind. So the video I made on that got hundreds of thousands of views, and that assisted in me becoming one of their top affiliates. And Angie Lee, I don't know if you know who she is. Mm-hmm. She has a podcast as well, but mm-hmm. Angie Lee, it's her company, and she has this conference called Pays to Be Brave, and there were 1,500 women there, and they asked me to come on stage and like share about everything that I was doing with them and like my YouTube channel. So that was my first ever speaking gig in front of 1,500 women. It was terrifying, but amazing. Like I cried before I went on stage, but then I did it and I was like, that was great. And so just having the opportunity to speak at a conference in front of 1,500 women was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know there's so many opportunities that come from a YouTube channel. And like you said, from being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your superpower that you think has contributed to your success on YouTube?
My superpower. Does manifestation count as my superpower?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm like this magical being, and things work out for me because I know how to create the life I want. Like I honestly believe it's easy to go for anything that my heart desires because it's meant for me. And I know it always works out. Even in times where it's like a little like, oh, this doesn't feel good, I know things are going to be amazing. There's no world where I fail. So
I think that's so incredibly inspiring considering your past. Like,
mm-hmm.
Because some people could be like, yeah, but she's always been like, positive Polly. Like, oh yeah, life is great, right? And I think it's even more impactful considering where you were at and mm-hmm. how you've really taken the initiative yourself to transform yourself into this mindset. Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
It's so amazing. Like in the video I just posted, I did like a quick little exercise showing people how to access different emotions in their body, like joy, love, happiness. And I had people comment just after it being up for an hour, like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I could feel my energy. I could feel it like bigger than myself. That was so amazing. Like teaching other people how to harness that, I feel like that's part of my superpower too.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, how do you think that you've been able to transform yourself into this super positive person with a mindset that everything is going to 100% work out in my favor?
I think it started with learning to babysit myself, like babysit my mind. Like, it's like our brains are this toddler that it's hopping around everywhere, getting into everything, like creating messes, and you just have to be like, no, like let's come back, it's okay, like you're all right. And then again, going back to like when we shame ourselves, I like to think of it as like that little toddler. If there's a toddler and she's already sad, if you yell at her and shame her, she's gonna throw a fit. So that toddler within me, you've got to be kind and just like redirect and just constant babysitting myself, honestly.
Oh.
So be the loving babysitter to yourself.
Yeah, that's great. And last question is, what is the number one piece of advice you would tell somebody who is just starting out on YouTube?
Number one piece of advice is don't wait until you feel confident. Start now. Because like I was saying earlier, we want to package everything up and make it perfect and then deliver it, but people don't want that. Start, feel uncomfortable. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. The more you face that uncomfortability, the less it takes over. Like the more you let yourself feel that and like post a video and you're like, oh my gosh, that was scary, but I'm still alive. And then post another one and you're like, oh, that was still a little scary and I'm still alive. The more you do it, it doesn't shock your system so much. So just do it. even though it probably will be uncomfortable, and keep doing it.
I think that's really good advice. Yeah, it's so true. So Annie,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. You've been wonderful. If those listening and watching are not familiar with you and they want to go check you out, where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at OhmyAnnie. That's with two H's, so OhhMyAnnie. And I'm also very active on Instagram, like every single day. So you can definitely hang out with me there. Those are the main places. So hope to see you
Awesome.
over there.
I'll put the links in the description below for the YouTube channel. And if you're here on YouTube, let myself know, let Annie know, what was your biggest takeaway from this interview? How are you going to maybe shift the way you think about yourself and your YouTube after watching hearing some of the great advice that Annie had to say? Annie, thanks so much.
Thank you. Love being here.
Bye.
Bye.